So Melancholia is the latest film by notorious director Lars Von Trier. This is the guy who's done films such as Dancer in the Dark and Antichrist, which is very controversial. This is his latest film that I had the opportunity to see, wondering what it would be like after seeing it pop up on many a top 10 of the year list by critics. So I went into Melancholia not really knowing what to expect, because I saw Antichrist and quite enjoyed Antichrist for what it was, and I think this is probably very much a companion piece to Antichrist, and you can watch them both back to back, or they're almost like sister movies. And in that regard, I didn't really know what to expect, because Antichrist was so controversial and violent, etc., that Melancholia I thought might be a bit different. So basically the film follows Kirsten Dunst's character, who basically suffers from depression and is getting married, and most of the film takes part at her wedding, and it's about her trying to get through the evening without losing it. And meanwhile, there is a planet which has been hiding behind the sun, orbiting, called Melancholia, which is heading straight for Earth. The scientists say that it's going to go straight past, but she seems to think that it's going to, maybe crash into the Earth, and etc., etc. Now, it's a film that the opening shot, now this isn't a spoiler because it literally is the opening shot, is Melancholia crashing into and destroying, enveloping Earth. And so right from the outset, the film is a little bit more out there, because you know that it's going to end with the destruction of our planet and the death of all the characters involved. So go straight, going in all the way through the film, there's this undercurrent of doom that is present in, every frame of the film. Now, I think it is one of those films where the less said about the plot specifics, the better, because I think it really succeeds in its character moments, and those are the reasons it's really worth watching, because right away all the acting in this film is absolutely brilliant. Kirsten Dunst is phenomenal as this character who does suffer from depression, and apparently Lars Von Trier has written this film because he suffers from depression himself and wanted an audience who doesn't suffer from it to know what it feels like to be depressed. And I think in that regard he completely succeeded. All the actors are absolutely brilliant. There is not one weak link in the bunch. The absolute standout performance for me has to be Kiefer Sutherland, who plays Kirsten Dunst's brother-in-law. This is the guy who has paid for the wedding because he's quite rich, and has to keep everybody in check because he thinks, I've paid for this wedding, you're going to have a good time if it kills me. And I really liked his character. I felt that his performance was very kind of truthful and honest and realistic. I can imagine a real person in that situation reacting the way he does, so I found him quite interesting. He's also a scientist as well, has a very distinct interest in the sciences, and is keeping his eye on Melancholia because he thinks it's going to be, the event of their lifetime, and is observing it with his son. So Kiefer Sutherland steals the film for me, although everybody else is really brilliant. The film actually splits in two. The first half is about Kirsten Dunst's character, and the second half is about her sister, played by Charlotte Gainsbourg, who is from, she was in Antichrist as well. And I think that this really gives the opportunity to see characters from different angles. Very much you get to see, the first half is very much seeing the characters through Kirsten Dunst's eyes, and the second half is very much seeing them through Charlotte Gainsbourg's eyes, and I think that getting to see the characters from these different angles is really quite interesting, and fleshes them out a bit more, so you do care about what's going to happen to them. I found that all really interesting. Where this film really succeeds though isn't in the acting or in the script. I mean, they're all very solid, the direction's very solid, but what Lars Von Trier really manages to do, and I can't put my finger on how he does it, is create a mood that sticks with you throughout the film, this feeling of slugging through depression almost, and it's a mood accentuated by the performances, by the lighting, by the sound design. It all accumulates together to create this very distinctive mood, and does very much make the audience feel like they are going through what Kirsten Dunst's character, I believe she's called Justine, what she's going through. And that is the ultimate success of the movie. Now, it does sound like it'd be a bit of a struggle getting through it. It sounds like it wouldn't be the most fun movie in the world, and It isn't, to be honest. It's not the most uplifting film, but it is entertaining. It's not like watching the trailer or maybe hearing somebody talk about a film, you'd think, oh, it sounds like pretentious art house rubbish and I have no interest in seeing it, but it's actually a lot more entertaining than you would think. It is, I wouldn't say it's an easy watch, but it's much lighter than you would think going in. I actually enjoyed watching it, and it's 2 hours long, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like it's got quite a pace to it, and I did find it very entertaining. I was a little worried at the beginning where we open up with a load of slow motion shots, similar to how Antichrist started with all the different characters in different poses, etc. And I thought this could be really pretentious and boring and rubbish, but it wasn't. It actually surprised me at just how entertaining it was. And in that regard, I would think people who either don't like Lars Von Trier or have never watched a Lars Von Trier film, I would recommend that you see this one. I honestly think that this will be the one that will turn you around. I found it to be quite a lot more accessible than a lot of his other films have been, because of his I've seen Dogville, Dancer in the Dark and Antichrist, and I wouldn't say that any of those are particularly accessible. This one is. I think a general audience could watch this and get something from it and possibly enjoy it, so I would recommend it in that degree. And I do think that Lars Von Trier hasn't lost any of what makes him a great filmmaker. Now, obviously, he's had a little controversy recently. Apparently said that he was a Nazi sympathiser at Cannes. But this is a director, and I agree with Mark Kermode, the British film critic, who basically says you cannot trust anything Lars Von Trier says. He is an old-fashioned prankster, and whenever he speaks in public, to be quite honest, I don't believe a word he says. I merely judge his films on his films, and judge them on their own merits, and I do really enjoy his work, so he is a great director worth watching. Melancholia, as I said, is entertaining, it's accessible, it features standout performances. Kirsten Dunst definitely deserves an Oscar nomination for this. I don't know whether or not its theatrical run qualifies for Oscar nominations, but if it does, she should definitely get the nomination. For me, Kiefer Sutherland stole the spotlight. I really enjoyed his performance, and I just enjoyed the film as a whole. So as I said, if you don't like Lars Von Trier, or if you've never actually sat and watched a Lars Von Trier film, try watching this one. Give it a go. I might be wrong, you might not like it, but I do think it's the most accessible and enjoyable film he's made in quite a long time. So I would highly recommend Melancholia.